Thank you for joining the Advanced Distributed Learning Initiative Technical Webinar Series. Because you have registered for the webinar today, you will continue to receive invitations for upcoming technical webinars. And if you follow the ADL initiative on social media, we'll be posting the topics there as well. If you know of anyone else who would like to be on our distribution list for these webinars, please feel free to have them reach out to us so they can be included in future sessions. Today's technical webinar topic is the U.S. National Park Service Common Learning Portal. Our lead speaker is Dale Carpenter with the U.S. National Park Service in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. Many of you may know him from his association with the ADL initiative in his current and previous positions. Dale and his team will be speaking for about 45 minutes, and there will be time at the end of the presentation for your questions. They will try their best to get to as many questions as they can within the allotted time. To ask a question, you can click on the questions panel in the GoToWebinar window and type your question there. This webinar will be recorded, and we will distribute a YouTube link via email in case you would like to share it with your colleagues. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker, Dale Carpenter. Dale.
Hi, thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Liz, for that introduction, and thanks ADL for inviting the National Park Service to show our Common Learning Portal today. For those of you who have seen any of the presentations I do, I love to start with a pretty slide. So those of you out there that have seen this place, it's the Grand Tetons, and one of the most beautiful places that we have of many. So I'd like to introduce the team of presenters today. You've already met me, and I'll be followed by Rebecca Wyatt. Rebecca's our project manager. She's with Enterprise Knowledge, and followed by Molly Russell, our Learning Communities Manager, and will be followed by Ryan Jennings, our Web Products Manager. And then I'll come back for a couple moments and then we'll take questions. So let's get started. Most of you probably are familiar with the National Park Service, I hope, and many of you probably enjoy some of the wonderful places that we preserve and protect for the United States. National Park Service is, of course, founded in 1916, and we celebrated 100 years a couple of years ago, and on that date actually is when we started our pilot project. But back to the slide, we have 20,000 employees. That includes permanent and temporary seasonal employees. We have 417 parks and monuments and some other offices, so we have a lot of locations. We also have a large volunteer workforce that many of you have met when you visit those parks. So what are our challenges? As you could tell from the previous slide, we're very geographically dispersed. 470 parks, and some of them are in pretty remote places. We also have a lot of different career fields, as you can imagine, where we're taking care of 18th century cannons at one location and possibly a historic ship or a boat in another location. It takes a lot of different skill sets to maintain those national treasures. So with our permanent workforce, there's no way we could do all of that with just 20,000 people, and the 340,000 plus volunteers, partners, seasonal employees, youth groups. Many of you may have participated or know people that participate in those that help us with our job in the summers. Often or sometimes all year. They're outside of our firewall, so they don't have access to any information that we post on our learning management system or other places behind the firewall. Another problem is pretty common to many of you, but especially with our western parts is the parks is there's places we go that there's no internet connection, and some places there's no cell phone connection. So that's a big challenge for us. Another challenge is our knowledge is decentralized. We have some very prominent, some very specialized people. I think of a person that I met in the Grand Canyon a couple of years ago and visiting out there, and he is probably the world's expert on the California condor. He's one of a kind. So that knowledge is actually in the field, not at our headquarters. And so we have trouble sometimes distributing that information or getting to that information. We also have a very small staff. We have about 60 people on our learning and development team. About half of those are designers, developers, and instructors. So we have a kind of a limited capacity for doing our job of helping to train the workforce. So in response to some of these challenges, we started looking at some different models. And one that we stumbled across is the 70-20-10 model. Many of you may have heard of this, but we give credit to Morgan McCall, Essinger, and Michael Lombardo while at the Center for Creative Leadership in the 80s. And they suggested that really much of what we know we learn on the job as employees. About 20% of what we know we learn from others or from informal learning, and about only 10%, believe it or not, from our formal training and our formal learning. So what do we do with that information? How do we leverage our resources given that we are spending about 90% of our resources on the 10%? So our learning and development office, which I work for, came up with this model. We call it the NPS Learning and Performance Ecosystem. It's very closely based upon the Foreman-Rosenberg model from 2014, published by eLearning Guild, titled Learning and Performance Ecosystem, Strategy, Technology, Impact, and Challenges. I encourage you to look that up. It's a free download, and it tells you much more about this model. But essentially, you have on the left in orange, the structured learning, formal learning. On the right, you have the informal learning. Well, prior to the Common Learning Portal, everything we did was on the left, and we didn't have the capability of filling in those gaps on the right. And since the Common Learning Portal, which is the part in green, we're able to provide knowledge management, performance support, social networking and collaboration, and access to experts. And we're going to talk more about each one of those. But it's important to note that we are not trying to change and take away from formal learning. We're trying to add to that and bring learning to the moment of need in the field. So we actually see the whole ecosystem as a combination, sharing data across the entire ecosystem from formal to informal learning. So we came up with this value statement. The NPS Common Learning Portal serves as a key enabler of the NPS Learning Performance Ecosystem. It provides a system for content management that allows our learners, both permanent and volunteer users, located anywhere, to find and access formal and informal learning opportunities and connect with others through communities of learning. So the concept was to provide a comprehensive learning and performance ecosystem that ties together formal, informal, and social learning and empowers our employees with the ability to find the resources they need when they need them. We say that a lot at the moment of need, any place, anytime, but how often do we really do that? So we're trying to put its systems in place that really get the information out there at that true moment of need. So part of what we were wanting to do, we needed something that is open source so we could share data. We wanted it to be easy to train content creation teams, very important for us because right now we have over 80, I think 89 content teams. We wanted to be able to provide access to both our employees with the PIV or smart cards and network access, but also those volunteers with information that's pertinent to them. We also wanted a safe place for social learning. We call that the Commons, and you're going to see a lot more of that later in this presentation. We also wanted a robust content governance strategy. We wanted to make sure the content is curated so we get the right information out there that represents what the NPS mission is and what we're trying to help our employees to learn. So the Common Learning Portal provides a direct support to a decentralized workforce through job aids, communities of learning, vetted resources, access to experts, training courses. It links to those, you'll see more of that later, and interactive learning activities. Mobile, not an option. We wanted mobile to be available as soon as we turned on the CLP on our launch, which we're going to talk a lot more about that later, but it is mobile ready. So connecting people I mentioned earlier. This is a comment from somebody that sent this in to us from Lucy Scott. It says the CLP is a good way to have one place for interpreters to go to get ideas and get feedback, especially from park rangers who come from smaller sites. So we followed up with Lucy and we talked with her, and she said her challenges are that they're dispersed across wide areas in her park. And the solution the CLP provides is meaningful comments and suggestions from her peers. So an outcome is the CLP is empowering that community. Um, we are currently getting from this group alone easily 15 replies or 15 new comments per day, correction, and with 4 to 5 replies each. Very active group using the Commons consistently. So I'm going to shift gears for just a moment. The Common Learning Portals was originally just a portal. I don't want to say just a portal. It's a very nice, robust portal, but until actually August, it didn't have interactive capabilities or tracking capabilities, to which a project over about a year long, we added an XAPI Learning Record Store plugin integration that is now part of the Common Learning Portal. When I say plugin, Common Learning Portal runs on a WordPress backend. And WordPress, as you may know, uses plugins to provide additional functionality. And we had a contractor develop that using the ADL's API specification. So with that, sharing the next slide, this plugin provides micro-learning, performance support, learning activities as informal learning, and as I mentioned, a WordPress plugin. It launches from within the Common Learning Portal, so it's seamless. And it tracks journal activities, activities that we've assigned, questions, videos that people watch. So one of the things that that we're really pushing toward in that 70-20-10 model you saw is at the moment of need or workflow learning. We're wanting to get as much information that's useful to the learner that's no more than they need, no less, but at the moment of need on any type of device. And this is allowing us to do that. We actually have some great examples since that plugin was introduced into the system a month ago that people are really pushing some great content out there. So one of our goals is not to make them find learning, but let them stumble into it. A great series called In Effigy, people stumbled into it and all of a sudden it became viral within our system, and we had hundreds, if not thousands of people that were really curious about this learning. Excuse me. So the value statement for the activity builder is from one-click launch. You can be taken into a learning activity and that we authored without the need for separate authoring applications. No longer do we have to use a separate tool to develop a SCORM package. We do it right there in the WordPress backend of the Common Learning Portal. And we train our people how to do it so that anybody that has the skills to use the back end and wants to develop their own learning can do so. And it reduces our development time from weeks to, or months, correction, to literally several weeks. It also allows us to enter things such as user blog activities, journal activities, and things like that, and provide completion statements that we can see what's going on, what people are doing, and how they're using the activity builder tool. So I'd like to shift gears for a minute. Enough of my talking. I think everybody's anxious to see this Common Learning Portal, and so I'd like to introduce Rebecca Wyatt, who's going to take you on a tour of the content part of the Common Learning Portal. So Liz, I'm going to let you shift over to Rebecca.
So what you're looking at right now on my screen is the home page of the Common Learning Portal, which is this website that Dale has been talking about. It houses all of the learning and development resources across the entire National Park Service to help their workforce improve their learning and performance. As you might imagine, this effort certainly takes a village. One of the things that I want to make really clear is while this group that you're listening to today, the distance learning group within the Department of Learning and Development, manages this website, we are by no means the managers of the content on this website. To date, there are 89 different content teams that publish information to this portal. And the best way to show you that is taking a look at all of the different programs that you see just here within this menu. So looking at this, you can see that there's an Nps Fundamentals program. This is an onboarding and new employee development program. There are a bunch of different career fields. When you think about the National Park Service, there's a broad range of people who contribute to keeping the Park Service mission moving. And those are everything from administration and business professionals to biologists out in the field that study that California condor that Dale was talking about earlier. And all of those training and professional development materials need to be included in this one portal so everybody across the service has one consistent place to go. But when you start including professional development materials from that broad of a very diverse workforce, then you start to see some findability challenges. And so that's one of the things that we really need to make sure that we address very well when we start looking at developing a common portal like this. So beyond just these content teams, 89 of them contributing information to the Common Learning Portal, they're putting this into this portal. This team is not only managing the development of the site, but also doing some things to help train all of these various 89 content teams that are putting information in here. They have subject matter expertise in areas such as supervision, management, and leadership, things like that we're seeing on the screen, but they don't necessarily have expertise in web content publishing or instructional design or how to make the content that they're putting into the Common Learning Portal 508 compliant and accessible for all of the learners who try to access this portal. And it's that kind of information and support that this distance learning group provides to those 89 teams who are all putting information in here. Beyond those 89 teams, because even that is not enough. As Dale mentioned in his presentation, a lot of the information in the National Park Service, a lot of the knowledge is really held in the field. It's not just held within the headquarters of the office. And so we do have on this site a submit a resource form. So the basic user story here would be, I'm out in the field, I'm that expert on the California condor, I've got information that I want to share and I don't see it represented right now on this portal. I can come to this form and submit a resource, and then that would be vetted by a learning and development professional on one of those 89 teams and potentially included and published on the site. And then, even beyond that, there's the need to collaboratively create and iterate and improve the information that's on this website. And so you can see that the site has the ability to write a review of the different types of content that are published on the site, leave a rating all the way from poor to great. And this is just an example of a review, a 5-star review that was left on a piece of content on the site. But there are definitely instances where the reviews are not 5 stars, and we're able to take that information, feed it to the content teams that are publishing and curating information for the site, and make improvements to the information that's presented and constantly improve and keep things up to date as we move along. So this very much is a collaborative and crowdsourced effort, getting all of this information into this portal. In terms of the types of information that you see here, we chatted out a link a little bit ago to the overview of the learning and performance ecosystem. That's actually a link on this particular portal that we sent out to you guys. But we don't just think about, when we're thinking about these learning resources, we do not just think about training. There is a training events catalog. One of the things that we do on the Common Learning Portal is help people find those formal learning resources, the classroom or the online learning that we're so accustomed to thinking about when we think about learning and development. And just thinking about, one particular example here, I'm just going to click on one of these just to pick a random example. This is an example of a course that can be found on the Common Learning Portal, and this just happens to be an online course that's happening on September 18th. And I'm going to see a little bit of information about that on the Common Learning Portal. But when I click this Register Now button, I'm actually going to leave this portal and either go into a Google form where I would register for that particular class, or go into the DOI Learning Management System, or to a vendor website. There's a bunch of different training that's captured here. But one thing that's really important to know is that this is a knowledge management portal. This is not a learning management system. So we help the workforce all across the National Park Service find the training, but none of the training lives on this portal. Whenever you click this register button, you're going to link out to a different system of some sort. But training is not the only thing that you're going to find on this Common Learning Portal. There's a whole wealth of resources called the Knowledge Park. This is where, and you can see this in the description here in the mega menu, this is where we find those just-in-time learning resources. We've got checklists and instructional articles and how-to videos. One of my favorite ones that has been published on the Common Learning Portal somewhat recently is this resource about how to do a soil test. And I just like this example because it's a very visual example where the content is accessible. It's not too esoteric. It's accessible to everyone. And so you see here with this one, we've got why would I do a soil test, 2 different ways to do it, and then a numbered step-by-step checklist of exactly how I would perform this soil test in the field, and then what to do with the results once I get them. This is a great example. This is not something where I necessarily need to go to a training. Sometimes learning and development really means just providing this checklist in this static format. I could print this out, have this page folded up in my back pocket to reference when I'm out in the field trying to perform this action for the first time. And that's a great example of the kinds of things that you'd find in the Knowledge Park on the Common Learning Portal. This is scheduled, the site that you're looking at here is scheduled for launch tomorrow, actually, which is a pretty exciting milestone for us. And this website will be announced and available outside of the DOI firewall, where it's been in a pilot phase for quite a long time. And one of the things that is important once this launch actually happens is the site is outside the firewall, but there is still some information that needs to be on this portal, but restricted to NPS employees and not the general public. One of the ways that we do that is we actually support 2 different login workflows. I've just opened this up in a different browser where I'm not logged in. If this is a federal site, if I have a PIV card, I can log in just by clicking this button, and this is going to check against your Active Directory record and log me in with my NPS or DOI credentials. But people who do not have a PIV card, who are, for example, volunteers or partners of the National Park Service, may still need access to this. And by invitation only, they can create an account and log in with a username and password. Having said that, one of the things that we have put into place on this website is the ability to publish certain resources to only those people who have logged in with a PIV card. Even if you receive an invitation and log in with that username and password, there are going to be some things that you still won't be able to access and won't see presented to you as an option. Dale mentioned a little bit ago the importance of mobile optimization and being able to access the site on a mobile device. And the simplest way for me to show that to you here is just using developer tools. The site is designed to be responsive. This is what that Knowledge Park page that we looked at a little bit ago would look like on an iPhone 6, 7, or 8. Can kind of scroll down here and see everything is just designed in such a way that it stacks very nicely. I can, collapse or expand some of these facets and see exactly what this would look like and how it would perform on that, and take a look at this as it would look on tablets as well. But that accessibility and the ability to navigate the site on a mobile device is very important and has always been mission critical and central to the way that we've moved forward with this site. One thing that I also wanted to share with you, as Dale mentioned, this is a brand new feature that we just rolled out on the Common Learning Portal in the month of August. For those of you that are familiar with the XAPI specification, we've developed interactive learning activities, which are available on the Common Learning Portal very recently, where we can track informal learning. And we can build these interactive learning activities. We can do things like present informal learning in a sequence. This is literally just a series of videos that help NPS employees develop a certain skill. They can watch this short video, and we're able to report on whether or not they've actually watched this video all the way to completion. There's some nice interactive elements where they can write, free-form text. We can report on whether or not they have answered these interactive questions. This is a journal entry. We can report on whether other types of assessments might be just simple multiple choice questions or true-false questions or things of that nature. I can click through here, and as I go through this, as I complete activities, I'm writing statements via XAPI to a learning records store. I'm sure Dale will be happy to answer all of your questions about that if there are any on the details about under the hood and how that works. But this is a really nice way for us to get beyond only measuring learning and performance in terms of formative assessment. This is a nice way to get some summative assessment and really just judge whether our online learners are engaging with the activities that we've presented to them in this more informal way, and whether, and then long term, it would be nice if we could cross-reference that and see if that really means an improvement in learning and performance. But this is really just measuring whether or not they've interacted with the activities as presented. And the very last thing I want to show you is really just the integration and how this all comes together in a site-wide search. So I'm going to do a quick search for 508. As I mentioned at the top of my portion of the talk here, this team, the distance learning group, provides a lot of resources to our content teams about how to make the resources that they're creating 508 compliant. So you can see that we've got a lot of results here when I search for 508, 55 of them to be exact. And one of the nice things about this search results page is it integrates all of those different things that we've talked about so far, plus some additional ones. So I've got down this left-hand column both the formal and the informal learning resources available here. I've got in the right-hand column interactions with human beings that Molly's going to talk about a little bit more in a few minutes in the Commons. For example, one of the things that you'll see is there is a group where people are talking about accessibility and 508 compliance. And that is just as relevant, that group of humans having that relevant conversation to my search results as this document about how to make my Word documents 508 compliant. If I open this up and take a look at this specific Knowledge Park resource, I see not only an overview and a bunch of different checklists to make sure that my Word documents are 508 compliant, but all the way at the bottom, I see this nice link to this Ask the Expert feature. And if I open this up, this takes me into a specific group in the Commons where I can ask questions of colleagues of mine and subject matter experts who also share this professional interest. And I'm actually going to leave it there and hand it over to Molly Russell, who is our Communities of Learning Manager, and give her an opportunity to really talk to you in more detail about what happens in those discussion forums and groups.
Thank you, Rebecca. Okay, working on showing my screen, and you should all see essentially the group homepage says Accessibility in Section 508 Working Group. Are you seeing that?
Yep.
Perfect. All right. So as Rebecca said, this is the Commons. She took you directly into what a group homepage would look like. In this instance, it's Accessibility in Section 508. This is where most of the conversations between colleagues actually happens within the CLP. Pretty basic. You see at the top, we have the group name. Below that is just a brief description that allows people to better understand if this group is going to serve their needs or if they might need to keep looking for essentially what they need and what they're looking for. Below that, the forum is really where all of the conversations take place within a group. Forums are organized into topics and topic threads, and these are essentially just conversations that are occurring within the group. And I can see from here who started the topic. Right here in this example, this was started by Tori Peterson. The title of the topic, which is just a general overview as to what somebody is going to see when they actually enter into this topic. And I can see exactly when it was posted, which in this instance was a week ago, in addition to how many people are discussing it, and then how many replies in total there have been. So as you can see, as we kind of scroll down, there's just been a lot of different people getting in there to provide resources or to ask questions based on their specific needs as they're kind of navigating these issues within their park or office. We also have this, when somebody starts a topic, we have the ability for them to mark it as require peer feedback. And essentially what that does is it notifies the community that somebody is in here and they really need help. And so if somebody has experience in this instance with permit forms, they can get in here and provide feedback to this individual, in this case, Barbara Justice. So let me just take you into this so you can actually see what a topic looks like. Okay, so this is an individual topic. I can see at the top, topic title with a brief description as to what Barbara is actually looking for. And if I scroll down, I can see that there have been a total of 7 people or 7 replies to her initial kind of question or kind of call out for help. People have the option to reply directly to the person who actually posted the question, or if they want to respond directly to a respondent, they can do that, and their response will be essentially shown nested in here. One question that we often, when we first kind of launched the CLP internally, one question we got is, how can I trust that what somebody's telling me is accurate, is good, is correct? And what we've built in here is the ability to hover over somebody's profile, and in that it takes essentially information that they've entered into their profile and displays it so that a person who's reviewing responses can see, in this instance, that this person who provided this response is the Park Service Section 508 coordinator. Therefore, you know, his response actually holds a bit of weight. Also have the opportunity to attach documents or things like that. Okay. So that is essentially what a group itself looks like, and I'm going to take you back out so you can see what a general group listing looks like. Excuse me. So this is what, if somebody wants to come into the Commons and just start looking around to see what sorts of groups that exist that they can join and that they can begin to engage in, they land on this page, and you navigate there by clicking on CLP groups. There are 2 ways to really find groups in which you want to engage or might have the sorts of information that that you're looking for. First option is what I'm doing right now. Is just kind of a simple browse. I'm able to see group title, group description. This kind of allows me to see, is this group actually meaningful to me? Do I want to go see what sorts of conversation this group has? I can also see how many people are a member of the group and exactly when it was last active. You can also see we do have several privacy options for groups. As Rebecca was mentioning, we are going public tomorrow, but we did want a certain level of safety built in for Park Service employees to have the sorts of conversations that they need to have in a private setting. So we do have the option to have public groups, and those are denoted by no tag next to the topic title, or group title, or NPS only. These groups are visible only to those folks who have logged in with a PID card, so essentially those people who are Park Service employees. We also have additional privacy settings, public, which anybody can view the content within the group or join it at their own free will. We have private groups. People can see that this group exists, search for it, in order to access content, they're going to first have to request access to the group, and then that shoots an email off to the group administrator, and it's up to the admin to either accept or deny their request. And finally, which is the most lockdown type of group we have, are called hidden groups. Hidden groups are those that, as you can see, are only visible to its members. In order to gain access to this group, you have to be added by an administrator. And after that occurs, you'll actually be able to see that the group is there and access the content within it. We also do have, let me see this, we do have search functionality within the Commons. So if you are an interpreter and you are looking for groups just dedicated towards interpretation, it will search not only topic titles, but also group descriptions. So we have suggested that all admins really consider how they craft their descriptions to include acronyms or just commonly used words or phrases that folks would be looking for. Okay, so those are the groups. As I said before, that's where most of the conversations take place within the Commons. There's also one other way to connect, and that is with connections. And this provides a member listing of all those people who have profiles or have accounts on the Common Learning portal. This was really created because, as Dale said before, we have a lot of employees who are out there doing work in all corners of, not only the United States, but the territories. And they don't always know other people out there doing similar work. This was designed to allow them to search for others who have similar expertise or doing similar, have similar duties, and to just more easily find them and engage. So I'm going to just search real quick. For one career field we have in which it's very spread out. There aren't a lot of people actually doing it in the Park Service, and this population sometimes has difficulty finding other anthropologists. So simply just typing this into the search bar under connections, I'm able to see that I'm able to see everybody who's listed anthropologist within their profile. And if I want to see exactly what somebody's experience is, I'm going to click on David Goldstein, who looks like Cultural Anthropology Lead for the Northeast region. I can click on that. And in his profile, I can view exactly what, not only what his job title is, but also what his expertise, his job duties are, as well as his biography and how kind of he got into anthropology and everything that he does. Once I have done that, I can choose to follow him. And once I follow him, I'm able to send him a private message. So say that I have a question I want to ask, but I don't necessarily want to do it in a group setting. I can just message him directly, and we can have a conversation that way. And finally, I do want to draw your attention to personalized navigation. All of the tabs that we've been using so far are just generalized navigation, but we do have the option when you follow somebody, for example, they will show up when you click My Connections, so you can more easily access those folks that you've kind of displayed a legal interest in. You can more easily access the groups that you've already joined. My Messages allows you to access those conversations that you've been having throughout the on the Common Learning portal. We have a notification system similar to that of Facebook, where if somebody mentions you in a conversation, if somebody replies to you, a blue dot will show up and you can access those notifications under the My Tools menu. We also have a few other options. Depending on your activity, you can earn various badges, as well as see which badges you have yet to earn and exactly what you can do to earn those badges. And then along with what Rebecca had talked about before with the learning activities, you also have access to a journal, which allows you to see kind of various entries that you've made, descriptions that you have that you might want to come back to in the future. And then finally, NPS employees also have the option to send others invitations to join the site. And with that overview of the CLP Commons, I think I will turn it over to Ryan Jennings.
Thank you, Marley. I will attempt to share my screen now.
of truth.
Okay, can you see my screen?
We can see it.
Yep.
Okay, so with the Common Learning Portal, we really like seeing all of the data that we're capturing on the back end. We can see what content users are going to, what's the most compelling, and we can report that back to the training manager or to the program manager who originally put that content up there. And so it's this really great feedback circle that we can provide to them. Since the beginning in August of 2016, when we launched the internal pilot, we've been watching registrations from employees who use their PIV card to access the website. And so we're being able to gauge our traction with the workforce at the headquarters and out in the field. And so this ski slope here kind of is a journey through time of our user registrations over the last 2 years. You can see it gets really steep here right around May of this year. And there was an event of content release during that time that increased our registration quite a bit. And you can see that reflected here in a monthly. We had over 1,000 users choose to register to view the content. Registration is voluntary, and you don't need to do it unless you want to participate in the commons or you want to look at content that might be tagged as MPS only. And so our cultural resources program released several videos on the effigy mounds, training content in May and April, and this was the spike of registrations that followed. And we were able to report that back to them. They were very excited. This is a data studio page built using data from Google Analytics from the site. And so we tailored this page just for that program so they could see how their content was being consumed. And they just had incredible amount of traction with the users during this 3 months, April, May, June, July, 4-month window, which is what's captured here. So we can see the pages that people were most interested in seeing. We can also see where in the country they were coming from. And so we can see both new users and existing users, where they're coming from to view that content from that program. And the program managers really eat this up. They love to see the feedback in this form. We also are able to capture and look through all of the search queries that users enter, which is really interesting because you can see it's kind of a rolling assessment through the year of what people are looking for in different time frames. We have reoccurring IT training that is required every year. It's called FISA training. And we can see those numbers rise in the results pages here as that FISA training becomes due. There's 3 tables here. There's one for unique searches, there's one for time after search, and one for search exits. And so I'll talk about search exits first. This is, I've submitted a query to the site, I'm looking at the results page, and there's nothing here that I want to click on, so I don't, or I close the browser. So I made a search, but I haven't looked at any content. So this page potentially shows places where content we don't have any, or we don't have the right kind of content to satisfy what they were looking for. And so we can kind of mine this page for ideas for new content to put on the site. We're getting ready to migrate from one server to another to the cloud platform. We use this to look at some different metrics on how the servers are handling the load of the additional users we're expected to see. And so we can see which pages maybe are taking the longest time to load here, or if we're having a really long connection time between the user and the server, we might need to go in and diagnose an issue. This is kind of a general overview. This is for the last 28 days of activity. We've seen an increase in the number of users. We've seen a decrease, it looks like, in the number of new users we've had as compared to the prior month. This blue box on the right shows aggregate data since the pilot launched 2 years ago in August. We've had over 1 million page views now. and over 43,000 unique visits by individuals monitored through Google Analytics, which is where this data comes from. This is a recreation of the front page, the mega menu. And what we've done is kind of dissected the menu and then overlaid metrics on top so we can kind of see a heat map of the front page. Where are people going first or visiting the most? And so up at the top, the social aspect, the commons and the groups is by far our most popular platform right now. Also training and knowledge park. These are the three pillars of the site that we refer to often. I'm going through really quickly so we can have questions at the end possibly. This is just another site. We're able to look at where people are coming and visiting the site. This is interesting from our perspective because if you look at a map of the National Park System, these dots at the top, these are the last 28 days, but this map at the bottom is aggregate since launch. So 2 years of traffic data has built these locations on this map. And with 417 parks, we have lots of locations and lots of users at those locations who need this information. And this shows that we're really speaking to the field, and the field likes what they see. This is a page just about the social side, the forums and the groups that are most popular, where are people going. This Goal Academy right here, this is a mixed media training event, online and in person, and they also do use the goal group to establish the new cohort before they actually meet in person. So online, that group can come together and meet each other before they get a chance to meet in person, to make that time in person more productive and effective. I'm going to throw up another slide here.
So
that was the end.
Thanks, Ryan. Good job. So today the CLP has been deployed to all the NPS employees throughout the Park Service, and without really any great advertisement, we have close to 50%. I have to thank the leadership for great support, and more than anything else, the employees and folks who are part of the system, that the Common Learning Portal system. Next slide, Ryan. Buzz through. I got 2 more slides real quick. So this is a summary of where we started 4 years ago and where we are today. The big parts, and I guess it's not even on the slide, is we received our Fedramp and our authority to operate in August. That was a culmination of really years of hard work. Some of the questions about PII and things like that, those are all important things that had to be worked out and registered, and all the proper paperwork and permissions done. And so if anybody has questions how to do that, we can share our checklist. It's a long process, but it's well worth it. Today, we are ready to launch as of tomorrow. So we're so excited to share that with you. Next slide. So a little fun with that, T-minus 18 and a half hours, roughly 9 o'clock. Well, 9 o'clock tomorrow, the activities start. The address, https://mylearning.nps.gov. Don't put a www in there, it won't work. It's secure, and it's open right now. You're the first really to know that. If you have your iPhones, your iPads, your computers, you should be able to go to that address and see the Common Learning Portal for yourself. And so we're excited to make that announcement to you right now. We're also excited to invite you to our activities tomorrow. So if you go to that same address, be sure to copy it down or bookmark it. We're going to have, starting at 9 o'clock through late in the day, we'll have parks from all over the National Park Service and people talking about how they're using the Common Learning Portal, what it means to them, how they use it on their jobs. A lot of exciting stuff. It's all most of it from the field, people sharing about it, that experience. You're all invited to that, and I'll entertain any further questions. We've had a number coming through in the chat, and Liz, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, so if we have a few minutes left. If we don't get to your question, then contact us. We'll get you in touch with the panelists so that way you can get all of your questions answered. Aaron Presnall wants to know, what are the verbs you track with XAPI? How do you capture analytics on informal learning?
Obviously, somebody's pretty big into XAPI. The verbs, we're just starting with our vocabulary, quite frankly, and our statements are pretty simple. Rebecca, can you think of a few examples of the verbs we have in use right now?
I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, and to be honest, I need to pull up our documentation about our XAPI activities to remember that. I'm going to fumble through that since I don't have them committed to memory. I apologize.
Be happy to send that to you if you want to drop me an email. But again, we're just getting started with that. It's brand new in our implementation. Most of it's connected to tracking videos, pages, and journal entries right now for the activities. There's also some connected with answering a few questions that at the end of some of the pages. But we can get back to you on that. What else do you have, Liz?
All right, Stephen Y wants to know, for a new resource posting before publishing, what's the reason for going through the vetting layers instead of allowing it to be automatically published and letting the dialogue help clarify as needed?
Ooh, that is a great question. And Rebecca, you're about to start. You're on the content side, and if you could explain, we don't mean to be overly restrictive, but we want to make sure people are getting the right information. Rebecca, you want to kind of take it from there?
So we have a pretty robust content governance plan, and this is actually something that we've thought through pretty carefully and had a lot of discussion about. And we have, the different aspects of the site, the 3 pillars that we've all talked about: the training events catalog, the knowledge park, and the commons. And we really have a lot of unfiltered discussion in the commons where people who are coming together in communities of learning and communities of practice are really co-creating knowledge from the ground up together. In the published parts of the Common Learning Portal, the training events catalog and the information in the Knowledge Park resources, we've kind of strategically decided to make sure that the information that's formally published there is vetted by subject matter experts. And so there's a place for both strategies on the Common Learning Portal. We have already, even in this early phase of the Common Learning Portal's life cycle, had instances where conversations have happened in the Commons, which is the more social learning side of the Common Learning Portal, where documents or knowledge has been co-created that's ended up forming Knowledge Park resources that have been vetted by subject matter experts and published in the Knowledge Park. So both of those things kind of work hand in hand.
I'd like to add one thing to it, just from a real world example. Chainsaw safety training. Go out and YouTube chainsaw and how to cut down a tree. And I guarantee you, you're going to see some things you don't want to see, and we don't want our employees to try doing. We actually have a great chainsaw safety training course with videos on how to do it properly and safety. So those we want our people to get the right information. Before the Common Learning Portal, Google was the main way people got information, but it wasn't always the right information. So that's really the why. And we try to make that as open and democratic as possible, because we don't want to withhold information when people need to get it either. Hope that answered the question. Long answer, but great question. We have time for another question, Liz?
Yep. We've got one from Jerry Fernandez. For operational maintenance of the system, is it via contractors? How many are there? What are the costs like?
Ryan, you want to take that one?
So we are through National Park Service and Department of Interior. Department of Interior has mandated the use of a cloud system that they've created. They've created a BPA contract and includes several cloud providers. We're mandated to use one of the ones that they've selected. And so we'll go ahead and put a bid out and get our quote back, and we'll pick one there. But we're required to use a subset of cloud providers that have already been vetted for us. We also have a contracting team that is still working on some development aspects of the site to bring it up to the full feature set that we envision. In the future, we would certainly like to rotate off of contractor support and have it in-house. We're trying to line that up, but new employees aren't cheap, and it's the direction we want to go. We need to find a steady state that we're happy with and that satisfies the requirements of the user base before we do that. Dale, is there anything else that you want to add to that?
No, I think a blend is healthy too. We've done enterprise knowledge that Rebecca's with is really taken us to where we are through that side of the content. As Ryan mentioned, that we use an authorized government Fedramp provided provider for the cloud. It's for any of the heavy lifting, we're not going to have the staff to do that, and contractor support and skills contractor brings are so invaluable. So as Ryan mentioned, we want to bring in the steady state part where we sometimes we have periods between contracts that we have to make sure our own staff are capable of filling those gaps. So Liz, we're down to 2 minutes. Time for probably one, maybe two more questions.
One more question sounds good. Trey Hayden wants to know, are the XAPI statements being utilized currently, or are they stored with the goal of later visualization or analysis?
Ooh, that's not a 2-minute question, but I
Oh,
love it. I love that question. We
maybe
are
we'll have
just
to connect
now,
with Trey later.
yeah, we're just now getting started on that. We don't have the data visualization piece done yet. We're just collecting right now, and we're so looking forward to getting to that next stage. So we couldn't do it all at once, but we want to get there pretty quick. I tried to make that under 2 minutes.
All right, well, we were receiving some more questions, so we'll try to get you guys connected if you didn't get your questions answered with the panelists after this. But thank you so much to Dale, Molly, Rebecca, and Ryan.
It's been our pleasure. Thank you for the invitation. This has been great.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you so much. Hope everybody has a great day.